Good morning, everybody. I'm Maithili Richards. I'm an enroll agent and with the Internal Revenue Service. I have earned the privilege of representing the taxpayers before Internal Revenue Service and actually a federally licensed practitioner. I'm also a member of a national and Florida Association of Enroll Agents. I really thank you for joining us today, and we'll be talking about some of the types of the income to be reported to IRS. Um, so there are three kinds of income that is usually what IRS recognizes as income. They are earned income, passive income, and portfolio income. So the earned income is also known as ordinary or active income. It is something that you get for your personal services that the employer pays you, and this is actually earning from a job or for contracting work. Um, this earned income is actually you're actively involved in working for this money, and if you are an employee, then you receive a Form W-2, and if you're a contractor, then you receive a Form 1099. Both of them list the money that you have earned. Then there is a passive income. This is usually when you do not participate materially in a business. Like you have a rental real estate, and then maybe you have a royalty from a book or a music or some income from your limited partnership. That this is absolutely, there is nothing that you have actually involved in a business. So that is called as a passive income. Then you have portfolio income. So if you have some kind of investments in stocks and bonds and things like that, and then the corporate or the government pays you dividends or interest, capital gains, and they're all referred and classified as investment income. So how are these income taxed? How are they? What are the tax rates on it? The earned income is the highest one because it is also subject to the Social Security and Medicaid taxes, which is almost like a 15% or something like that. And then the passive income is the least one. Usually they are between 10 to 15%. Because you're allowed a lot more deductions than the earned income category. And then the portfolio income is usually not more than the 20% because you have capital gains in it and the dividends and interest, and they're also considered as ordinary income for the tax purposes. So how are these income are reported? Earned income is normally reported in the Form W-2, and you will see it in the W-2. And the portfolio income is usually reported in the Form 99. And of course, the passive income, you have to calculate it and report it in the tax form, along with the tax form. So the IRS is like issue this federal tax form, Form W-2, and it is usually given by the employers to their employees, and then it states and it reports how much an employee is paid in a year. And usually you get, when you get it in the mail, you get 3 copies of this W-2. One of them go to federal, and one of them for your own records, and one of them like is a state if you're filing for tax return. So that is copy B and copy C and copy 2. The copy C, you usually keep it for 7 years for in your records. You should get all your W-2s by January 31st, which is today. They should mail it out to you or hand deliver it to you by this day. And the employer reports all their W-2 income consolidated into one form as W-3, and they mail it to Social Security Administration. And of course, SSA always shares this data with the Internal Revenue Service, and that's how the Internal Revenue Service come to know of your income. So we're going to talk a little bit about all these interesting boxes in W-2. So today you got in your mail the W-2 and you're looking at it and you're looking at all these boxes and you're wondering why one is different from the other. And then we're going to talk a little bit about it. It's just the basic because there's a lot more involved in it. And when you prepare your tax return, that's you don't leave out any of these things to be reported because everything has its own significance things in it. So we're going to look at this W-2 like a box by box. So the first one, the box A, where it says employee social security number, is that is what your social security number appears in it. Whatever that you have given or whatever you have filed with the W-4, that's what it shows there. So be very careful when you receive your W-2 from your employer. Have a double check on that. Sometimes there may be a digit missing or digit may be like a wrong number there. So just always make sure that it is correct. The box B is your employer identification number. This kind of like a reports to IRS or to Social Security Administration. So who is the person responsible who paid you the salary and what the identification number, which is employee identification number. So that is what is says in box B, and then the box C, of course, is their employer's name and address and the zip code.
We have a question. The question is, what happens if you do not receive your W-2 or 1099 from the employer by the due date?
You really have to call the employer and then ask them, maybe they have sent it to you and then you didn't receive it because maybe there was a wrong address. But by law, they are supposed to mail that out by January 31st. So even, like they may mail it out on January 31st and you may not receive it until like February 2nd or 3rd or 4th, but it is always a good thing to call your employer, make sure the address is correct and they have mailed out. Because that is by law, you should be getting it within the first week of February. And thank you. So we were looking at the box B and C. Then we are going to go into the box D, which is a control number, which is just kind of like a unique form document that for the employer's records, and usually the number is assigned by the company's payroll processing software, also, so it is not really, it is definitely for the employer purposes. And then the box E is it identifies your full name and and the box F identifies your address and city and your zip code. So in any time during the last year, the year that it is being reported, the W-2 is being reported, your name has changed or something like that, you definitely have to call your company or your employer and update their records, and also the Social Security, because usually the Social Security Administration and the IRS matches these records to the records they have on file. So for any reason, if it is different, then it is going to be a little bit red flag, and usually you get a letter from them asking why it is different. So always make sure that your name, if you had a change in the name, always make sure that to update that records. So as I mentioned, the E and F identifies your the E and F identifies your the name and the addresses of the employee that is you. Always also make sure that you have the current address on it. So now we are going to go into the numbered boxes on the right side. So we are going to look at the number 1, which is the wages. This is the one that it is reported all your taxable wages or salary for the federal income tax purposes. But it includes all your wages, the salary, and the tips, the business, and other taxable compensation from it. So, but sometimes it doesn't include the the 401k plans or the savings contribution to the 401k plan or any kind of 403b plan or health insurance, it doesn't include that because it is the wages that is subject to the federal income taxes. So number two, the box number two reports what is the total amount your employer withheld from your paycheck for federal income tax purposes. This is the income, the amount that you paid throughout the year for the federal tax withholding. This amount you have to report it into the Form 1040 line number 62 or 36 of Form 1040A to show this is where that you have paid into the federal income tax or withheld for the whole year. So the box number three is, before that we'll go into box number three, which is the Social Security wages, and then the box number four is the Social Security tax withheld. The Social Security wages is, it is the income that is subject to the Social Security tax. It is based, for 2017, it is almost like $118,500. That up to that wages, the taxes is assessed. And then the box number four tells you what Social Security taxes was withheld up to that 118,500. But box number four is the Medicaid, and actually the box number three and box number one could be different because one of the reasons, as I mentioned earlier, it could have, the box number one didn't have the medical insurance that was, that you paid into, or the 401k contribution. So the Social Security wages could be different from the wages if you're contributing something for your medical insurance and for the 401k plans. So the box number five actually is it is a wages subject, the wages or salary subject to the Medicare taxes. There is no maximum wage base, just like the Social Security for the Medicare. So that this box could be higher than 3 and 1 because it is all the wages are going to be reported in there. They also include all the deferred compensation, the 401 contribution, any other fringe benefits that is excluded before. It will all be included in this box. It is actually the entire compensation from your job is going to be the Medicare wages and salary. Of course, the box number 6 is going to say what the Medicare taxes that were withheld. It is usually, the tax rate is 1.45% of your box number 5. So that is the taxes that was withheld. So, okay, now we are going to go to box number 7, which reports your tip income that is reported to your employee. Box number 8 is your allocated tips, which is any income that was allocated to you by any tip income that was allocated to you by your employer. Box 9 it used to be like they had this earned income credit a while ago, but I don't think it is, but it is gone by 2010, and I don't think it is being reported anymore. So it's supposed to be empty. Box number 10, it is any amounts that was reimbursed for dependent care expenses through a flexible spending amount or something like that, or a dollar value after dependent care services provided to you by your employer. And box number 11 is any amounts that were distributed to you from your employer's non-qualified deferred compensation plan. It is this one is already included in the taxable wages in box 1, so you have to be careful about that. And box 12 is also applies to deferred compensation and other compensation. So in box 12 is like you have different types of things like A, B, C, D, and most of it is usually The D is the one that they use for the 401k, and all the other, there are different codes that they use for different kinds of income for the box number 12. So you really have to look at the W-2 and make sure that whatever that it says is applies to these codes. Then box number 13, it's like says whether you are a statutory employee, and then it doesn't really have any importance at this point. And box 14 is the one that if you have any other additional information that tax information that should be reported in here. It is just like a brief description, like if it is something like a union dues or employer paid tuition, or any kind of after-tax contribution to a retirement plan, and mostly it is a state disability insurance premiums that is recorded in there, and also any kind of a state and local tax deductions. Box 15 reports if the employer's state and state tax identification number. And 16 is the amount of the wages for the state source wages. And then box number 17 is also what is the state taxes, state income taxes withheld from your paycheck. Box 18 is the one that reports the total amount of wages subject to local and city taxes. And box 19 is what was withheld from your checks for the local, city, and other state income taxes. And box 20 is also provides a brief description of the local, city, and other state tax being paid. So when you are preparing a tax return, or when you are reviewing your tax return that was prepared by somebody else, you have to make sure that all this information is properly coded and reported in your tax return. As I mentioned to you before, every one of them has its own significance in there. So if you have something in the 401k distributions amount in box number 12D, you really have to put it in there, because sometimes if you may be able to get a credit for your the 401k savings plan. So it is good to put all the information into your tax program or into your tax return, so properly report it, so that you will get all kinds of proper credits, and properly it is calculated. So that this W-2 kind of like it tells everything about what you earned throughout the year to the IRS, and then based on this you prepare your tax returns. Sometimes your federal income tax withheld is much lower than your tax rate, and then you end up paying back to the IRS, or it could be more, and then you will be getting a refund on your tax return that was withheld. So again, just be very careful on how much your change of address, your change of name, and everything. Be very careful on that. So now we are going to go into the next one is going to be the Form 1099. Form 1099 is like if you're a contractor, or if you're receiving some other income, miscellaneous other income from any other institution or any other government thing, this is where you would be getting the 1099. If you are a if you receive a 1099 miscellaneous, and in something in the non-employee compensation box number 7, then that is definitely subject to self-employment taxes. So you manage your own taxes at this point, and you're an independent contractor. So whenever you know that you will be getting a 1099 at the end of the year, make sure that you have paid some estimated income, and then make sure you have all the documentations for the deductions in your from your 1099 compensation. I have 10 minutes. So we're going to also talk a little bit about all kinds of this 1099 that you will be receiving. The 1099 is kind of like the box. The first box says who is the payer and what is their payer's federal identification number, and the recipient's identification number is going to be your social security number or your company's EIN number, your name and your addresses, and all these things are going to be in there. But this boxes there says that the rents and the royalty that you received and the other income, if they have withheld any federal income tax, that is going to show in the box number 4. And then if you have, as I mentioned, if you have any other non-employee compensation, you will see that in box number 7. But this is for 1099 miscellaneous form. But we do have a lot of 1099 miscellaneous 1099 forms. Like you have like a 1099A that it is if you have defaulted an amount on your mortgage loan, it is going to be reported in 1099A, and unfortunately it is a taxable income. Then you have 1099B, which is a proceeds from your broker from your stocks and your investment income, which is also going to be, you should report that as a taxable income. 1099C is again is a cancellation of debt, and you would receive that from your lender, and it is considered as a taxable income and also an ordinary income. 1099 dividends, it reports your dividends, distribution, investment income, and only when it is more than $600, you would see that. 1099G is always when you get a state refunds, unfortunately it becomes a taxable income for federal. So all those things and unemployment compensation, your taxable grants are all going to be reported as a 1099G. And then, of course, you have 1099 interest, which is a interest income, again, only when it is more than $600. 1099K is whatever the payments are from the merchant card or third-party network payments. 1099 LTC is like if you have a long-term care and then that insurance company paid for that. Usually it is offset by the expenses, but usually that long-term care institutions provide you 1099 LTC. Of course, we just talked a little bit about 1099 miscellaneous, which is when it is more than $600, it is a non-employee compensation and it's taxable for Social Security and Medicare. And then you have 1099 OID, which is the original issue discount, which is the difference between the face value and a discounted price on a bond, and you have to report it over a period of life. You have 1099Q, which is from a qualified education program, and then it offsets this income, this whatever that is reported here is offset by qualifying educational expenses, but when it exceeds the expenses, then you have to report it as another income. You have 1099R, which is a distribution from your pensions, annuities, and like from IRAs, profit sharing plans, and insurance contracts, is all reported in 1099R, and it is taxable. 1099S is when you have real estate transaction, all those proceeds are reported in 1099S. 1099SA, that it is a distribution from your HSA or MSA or Medicare Advantage MSA. So those are all reported in 1099SA. Then you have 1099 SSA, which is a Social Security amount. This is also at a certain point they're all taxable. All these forms you're supposed to get it by January 31st, except I think the 1099B is the only one that you may not. They may not have to report it until February 15th, but everything else you should receive it by January 31st. The dividends and interest are only when it is over $600. So if you have something under $10, you may not even see it. So these are all the different types of income, and then it also reports what the federal tax was withheld or the state income tax was withheld. So based on the information, you prepare your income tax return. So I think I have kind of like explain to you in detail about all these things. And I know your heart sinks when you see this 1099 and W-2 forms in the mail, because it is time to file your tax returns, and then you will be paying taxes on some of these, or you'll be getting a refund. And either way, you pay taxes for the Internal Revenue Service. So you guys have any questions, you can just ask me at this point.
We're always also available at Business Resource Partner, so feel free to contact us at the office or send a email to info@business brp.team. You can contact us through our website at businessresourcepartner.com. You can send us a message on either of our Facebook pages, and we'll be more than willing to help you at any time. So we'll leave this open a few more minutes for any more questions that there may be. Okay, and since it doesn't seem like there's any questions, we are going to end this live broadcast. We hope to see you next week when we will have another Facebook Live class, as always, at 10:30 on Wednesdays. We hope to see you then. Have a good week.
And thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you.